Hey, this is the Board Buds, and today we want to talk about a game by Tatsuca Chuo, Sweetlands. Sweetlands is a worker placement game where you will be transforming the land, building cities, and playing citizens, all to gain the most points. So, Cody, what did you think was the most standout thing about this game?
Um, I don't know about the most standout thing, but the initial interesting concept I thought was how you use the citizen cards to pay to put your workers out, but also they can be used for their own abilities and points and such.
Yeah, your workers essentially get paid by your citizens, so you have a choice of doing those citizen cards, which give you more income, and building out your town, which is will get you more points. There's a little bit of overlap there, but it definitely leads to some weird choices where you have a lot of good cards, but you have to kind of get rid of them in order to actually do things on the board.
Yeah, I thought the tension and decision space there of what do I want to do with this card? Do I need to use it to actually do one of the worker placement spots, or do I actually need its power to do what I'm trying to accomplish here? I thought that was led to really interesting and difficult decisions the whole time.
And another thing about that is when you play onto the board, the spaces get more expensive. The more times people have gone there, so you have to decide if you want to take that action early to only play one of your cards, or if you wait and potentially someone else puts a guy out on that spot, and now you're paying two citizen cards or even three to go to that spot.
Yeah, that did lead to, at least in our games, there's a spot to draw a card or two. And I think that got taken first or second pretty much every round, every time we've played.
Yeah, there's a couple mitigating spots that'll either let you take a spot later for no extra cost, or draw cards, or copy an action, which all have slight downsides but help mitigate that cost. So it seemed like almost, yeah, like you said, every game, those would fill up pretty fast because, having that extra decision later when you needed it would matter a lot.
Yeah, they seemed really strong. I don't think that's really a downside at all. Just whoever was first in turn order, pretty much first or second, would take the essentially free worker thing or an extra card.
And I do think, as we played more, I felt like it was slightly less necessary to go there if I had a plan. It can feel a bit weird if you don't do that and you do all of your actions. You'll end up having to end your round earlier than other people that kind of stalled, which initially feels bad. But the more I did it, the more I felt like I had accomplished what I wanted to do anyways. So it wasn't that bad. It just kind of feels bad in the you're not really taking turns for a bit while other people figure it out.
Yeah, I mostly agree with that. And then the first game we played, we kind of just let the same person monopolize all of the mitigation spots. So it ended up we play every time we've played was with four people. So pretty much every round, three people would be done 4 or 5 turns before the fourth person, and those were some rough rounds. But I think we realized that was not not a good thing to do. Is let one person monopolize all the mitigation spots, and in future plays that wasn't really an issue at all.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts on that?
Not really. I think that's probably the core of the game is the decisions on what to do with your citizen cards, like play them for their own benefit, which can be instant resources or later kind of engine buildy things or even end game points. Um, Maybe we can talk about the end game points ones. The deck is huge in this, but I think there's only like 20 or 30 of the end game point ones, something like that.
Yeah, I believe they're called pass abilities. I think most of them are actually end of round.
Right, you're right. They are end of round, not end of
You
game.
will score points at the end of the round based on some criteria, and like Cody said, there's not a a lot in them. Most of them seem more income based. Occasionally I'd come across them, but you really, I mean, I feel like one game I just didn't even see any of them.
Yeah, we've definitely played ones that I see maybe one like early on, and they cost a lot, so they're not really super realistic to get out early. Do you think that was a problem with those? Do you think they were strong enough that it matters that there's so few of those, or do you think it doesn't really matter?
It's hard to say. I mean, I personally didn't notice that, one person that had played it had a crazy amount of points or anything above anybody else. So my reaction is mostly that I think it's fine. It's just an alternative to, do you want a steady flow of points now or, the income? But I think that is kind of a good thing because ultimately it feels fuzzy on how many points really anybody has. So it never really felt like I was doing super poorly or super great. Because there was points everywhere. So there's a lot of points in the game. So it never really felt like one single thing really, was busted.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Just I thought it was interesting that there were so few of the pass for points ability cards compared to the size of that deck, because that deck is massive and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, it is a lot of cards.
Yeah. With what you said about the kind of fuzzy who's winning or who's doing well, I think that's a good segue to talk about how scoring works in general, I guess. There's like 3 different actual points trackers you have 3 different markers on one point track. And then there's 6 prosperity tracks, which are ways to change how you score various elements in the game. So I think that is the main thing that leads to that fuzziness. What do you think about that stuff?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. There's definitely a lot of different ways you can go and play the game. It's a game that doesn't expect you to do everything, and when you look at some of those prosperity tracks, if you don't go up on them all, you just won't score that category.
Yeah, they all start at you score 0 points if you don't move anything on this.
Yep.
For that.
And it felt like I could ignore 1 or 2 of them because it didn't really matter. Just focus on the ones that I personally wanted to do or focus on. So it felt like usually maybe 2 of them I'd really be focused on, 2 of them I'd be kind of doing, and then the other 2 I kind of just ignored, and it seemed to work out.
Yeah, I don't think anyone maxed all of them out ever in any of our plays, and that seems pretty unrealistic and probably not really worthwhile either, because like you said, this is not a game where I don't think you can realistically do everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think usually we would move at least 1 up on each of the track to get some points. I don't think anyone left them at actually 0 too often, but it probably did happen, and maybe it would have been worthwhile too. But I thought that whole kind of choose how you're going to score was a really, really cool decision and aspect of the game.
And there's another aspect of that when you, in order to go up on that prosperity tracks, you collect these hearts either through building tiles to transform your map, or putting out cities, or potentially playing cards. And those, when you do those actions, you actually have a choice between taking that heart to move up on prosperity or using that to up your income. So a large part of that is making the decision of when do I want to stop raising my income to start moving up the points track. And there are some rewards you can get by moving up prosperity, but generally they're not huge. And getting income real early is quite important in the game. There's only 5 rounds total, so and your money feels very tight. So there's also some decision space there on how you balance that out.
Yeah, the rewards on those prosperity tracks feel nice when you get them, but they're definitely not. They're nothing huge. They're like get a card, put out a tile, pretty minor things that are a nice bonus, but they're not the reason to do the track for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. One thing to note about the not the prosperity tracks, but the actual score track, which you have three markers per player on. The early section of that is a disaster with at least with 4 players, because the spaces are pretty small at the start, and when you have maybe 12 pieces on one space, it's a mess.
Yeah, it definitely was quite difficult to make sure we didn't accidentally move somebody, or even to find the correct marker to move.
Right.
There's a little symbol on top, but it's quite hard to see. And in general, I think we had kind of trouble determining who was which color at times, just because there wasn't really a way outside of just knowing that I was green and somebody else was yellow. So, if you ask somebody who's over by the score to move something, it kind of turns into a little bit of a mess. So that would have been nice if there was more room there.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a very packed board, so it's difficult to squeeze things out.
It does get better after after you get past the first 10 points or something. People get spread out a little bit, and either the spaces get bigger or it's spread out, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think once a couple people focus on moving out some of their trackers, and other people might just be ignoring that, so it tends to separate enough that you kind of know what's going on.
I think you're right, though, that every time we've played, I think we've had someone move the wrong point marker at some point in time, which we don't usually mess that up in things. And I think you're right that it's because I think the only player color pieces are your various markers on tracks. I don't think you have anything in front of you that's your color.
Well, you do have the player boards, which you have a couple markers on, but it's quite busy, so it's difficult to see. And there's other tokens on your board that everybody shares, like your buildings. So it's just difficult to parse. If I look across the table and see that somebody else's, cylinder is this color when there's a lot of stuff on the board and a lot of cards out. Because just in general, this game fills up the entire table, and there's no extra space for us.
Yeah, absolutely. There's your table here, which isn't small at all. That we had no extra space for anything.
But how did you feel about those 3-point tracks? I believe there was a main point track, and then you have an industry and
city is
the city points. How did you feel about the 2 other point tracks existing?
I think that's another really cool aspect. It kind of ties in with the prosperity stuff. Not exactly. They're different aspects, I think, for the most part. Maybe industry has its own prosperity thing.
It adds a little bit extra depending on some things, but I think in general they're mostly separate.
Gotcha. But anyway, so yeah, they're just another aspect that at the end of the game they get converted to the normal victory points at a different rate based on various things. But yeah, I really like everything to do with the scoring in this pretty much, I think. So that was, other than the fact that the track's a mess and hard to deal with, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, just in general, it felt like you didn't even really have to focus on those if you didn't want to. Part of the city track was building out cities on your board, whereas the industry is moving a train and a carriage up the industry track. But I think in many of the games we had, some people just didn't even touch those tracks, while other people really focused on doing one or the other, or maybe a little bit of both. So they didn't feel 100% necessary, but they do feel pretty good. Like if you want to go in on industry, you can do a lot of industry, and there's ways to even make the industry points convert bigger at the end. So it's just another path, another way to kind of let you choose kind of which way you want to go and play the game.
Yeah, I think all that very much leads to the game being really open as to what strategy you go with, what you want to try to do, and there's a lot of options. Or like you can try to go really hard on one specific thing. I think you can probably mix and match a bit and go a little bit on various things and win. Although I think most of our games have been most won by someone going really hard into one specific method so far.
Yeah, I think generally it seemed like we focused on one thing, although everybody kind of needs to do the putting tiles out on your map and building some buildings, but you might not necessarily go hard on cities specifically. But a lot of the actions that you take are contingent on at least putting tiles out on your map
Yeah.
in order to, well, both up your income and unlock some stuff to like the industry track. You need to place specific buildings out to let yourself go higher on that track, which can tie into if you want to make your cities bigger. But also you need buildings out if you want to put bunnies. So there's a little bit of overlap that you need to do. But usually you kind of focus on one or two things.
Yeah, I agree that I all the separate pieces are interconnected, at least some. So you can't totally ignore any aspect of the game, even though maybe you're ignoring the scoring parts of it. Like the industry one track, for example, I think usually somebody is basically at 0 on the industry points track at the end of the game every time. And usually nobody goes all that hard on the city track. Like the city points usually don't, in our games, haven't added up to a ton because most people don't. Although I think last time you built a lot of cities and got a lot of city points out of that.
I got a decent amount out of city points, but it did feel like one of the harder tracks to do just because it was quite an investment of buildings, and a lot of those things you need to kind of get done early to really see the points stack up, whereas some of them, like putting bunnies into your houses, is something that you can more just focus on doing late game because it just all scores at the end.
Right. Both the industry track and the city track are things that you increase your points on each at the end of each round based on some things. Probably talk about the actual map city building stuff a little bit. We haven't really touched on that at all.
That's true. Yeah.
And that is probably like the thing that ties everything else together, I guess.
Yep. Yeah. Every player gets their own hex grid, basically, where you'll be putting out tiles, and like we said, those will be getting you either income or going up in prosperity. But it works similar to a lot of games where you have a starting point and then you have to build tiles off of those starting points, and you can play with everybody has the same board or different boards, but there are different types of tiles. Depending on what color you're placing on, that get you different income, as well as an additional mechanic where you build roads alongside the tiles, which will then flip the tiles and get you added benefits. And then once you do that, you can finally start building buildings on top of those tiles, which will also get you benefits. So there's a lot kind of going on there on how much you want to just place tiles versus flip the tiles and start making buildings. You feel like you like that part of the game?
Yeah. Every time we play, it feels like it takes a lot more to build roads to where I want them to be than I think it's going to. I think that's just a visual trick of how I'm looking at the grid, since it goes between on the edges of hexes, so the way it has to snake through them to get to a point is a lot longer than my brain thinks it's going to be.
Yeah, it can be kind of deceptive because with one rotor bridge down, you can flip 2 tiles on both sides, but then you kind of end up snaking through tiles that have already been flipped.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's not my favorite part of the game, but I think it's good and does a good job of kind of connecting all the other things together. Because, like you said, that's a lot of where you're gonna build your income, and you also need to do that to put the buildings out. There's three or four, well, like five different types of buildings, but three main types of buildings, I would say. And I think you can't really totally ignore those. I think you need to do some of them because they unlock higher point scoring potential for different aspects later.
Yep.
And also some pretty good bonuses along the way, I think.
Yeah, and one of the major things that we haven't talked about is everybody has their own asymmetrical powers that you'll start with. And one of the ways that you end up unlocking what is essentially your superpower, which you activate by putting out a specific building, but you have to fulfill some conditions, which is generally placing out a certain amount of buildings of a certain type, as well as getting a star off of the board through a number of different ways. So
Yeah.
it did feel like you kind of wanted to get down specific buildings as fast as you could so you can lock your ability, which is usually pretty strong.
Most of them seemed pretty strong, yeah. Some more so than others, especially like some seemed better that it would be okay to take late, whereas some you definitely wanted as soon as possible because they had like a every round type of benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely it was hard to kind of tell the balance there because each person has like an ability that they'll always have and then one that they unlock and some other slight different things about their board.
Yeah,
so
your starting resources and incomes are all
yeah,
based
so
on that as well.
you
And I
might
guess
have
the unlocks for all the building tracks are different per character
Yep.
too, I believe.
Yeah.
So they're pretty variable there.
Yeah, so your like base ability might be a bit stronger, or your final ability is less stronger, or maybe your final ability is really good, or maybe you just I think one of the characters has just flat out better starting money and income. So there's kind of a balance there.
Do you like the variability in the characters there? Did any of them feel too strong, too weak? Any issues? I think our one friend after the first play, I think he may have changed his mind, but thought that they kind of pigeonholed you into a specific strategy.
That I could probably agree with. Especially like I think the last person I played with specifically, their ability did stuff with the industry track, so I had to go to the industry track effectively. So it does in that sense. I didn't really feel like that was too big of a problem per se. I didn't feel like there was randomness in the game that like really
Wouldn't let you go that
wouldn't
way.
let me do that outside of like I might not have gotten the cards that I perfectly wanted, but it didn't feel like it usually was that bad that like most of the cards still would do something good for me.
Yeah, I think I agree. I thought some of the characters, like you said, that the industry one, which I have also played with one of the games, is very much you need to be doing industry and that's how you're going to do good. But I think some of the other ones are more open and aren't that way. So I think they can pigeonhole you, but not all of them do. And I kind of appreciate the direction that some of them give because there's so many ways to go in this that it's nice to have a little push in a direction.
Yeah, I kind of see it as that. As like, okay, this is kind of where I'm going to focus. I can still do other things, but I want to do this to get the value out of my character. With the industry track, you could just not do the industry and just take the extra bonuses that she gives to go up the industry track.
Yeah.
But it might make more sense to focus solely on that. That way you can really unlock the things that make it worth more points. But overall, yeah, I thought it was fine. I could maybe see it feeling slightly bad if like everybody was trying to do the same thing. But I think the way the powers are, that's probably not going to happen. That you're really overlapping that much. That like everybody's always taking the industry spaces. And if there's enough mitigation and stuff that you can still usually do the industry
Yeah.
spaces if somebody else is doing it as well.
Yeah, I don't think any of our plays I really felt super locked out of any specific spot. Like even some would get taken more often, but even then, like I never felt like, oh, I just can't really do this at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, just to go back to the map, since we derailed a little bit there, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about was the ports on the map, which was an interesting inclusion to me. There's ports on the map, and at the end of the game, if you don't connect them with tiles, I think they're generally kind of on the four sides of the map,
Yeah.
so they're kind of separated. But if you don't connect them, you actually end up losing points, I think to quite a significant amount if you just connect none of them, to the point where if you connect all of them, you're getting a little bit of points.
I think it's something like if you don't connect any, you lose like 40 points. And if you connect all of them, you get like 5 or 10.
Yeah, and
Which
if
this is
you're
like
missing one, you get like 0. So
Yeah. And this is like a well over 200 point game, so 5 points is not worth talking about really.
yeah, it just seemed like a weird inclusion.
Yeah, I didn't hate it, but it's something I kind of forget about until near the end and like, oh, I guess I should throw some tiles down to get here.
That's a lot of how I felt was once I got close and really was capping out on my other stuff. Oh, now I guess I have some tiles. I better just connect the ports that I can to like mitigate that. But it felt like a little bit of a weird inclusion. I don't know if it really would have helped or hurt the game to get rid of it.
I feel like that it's probably just an extra thing that doesn't really change much. Because I don't think any of us ever really took any of the big negatives on it either.
No, and it never really seemed to come up outside of just, what. Actually, it more felt like we got to the end and we already kind of knew who won, and then was just like, oh, to make sure everybody gets your port scores in.
Yeah. Probably also everyone reminding each other, hey, don't forget that this is a thing in the last round, because it does really just seem like kind of a thrown in thing that could have been taken out.
Yeah.
Similar to that, not score wise, but as far as building stuff out on your map, there's 2 spots, they're ports or something. Docks, I don't know.
Yeah.
Things to get you extra cards each round, but they take quite a bit of investment to get to. And our group largely, maybe like 1 or 2 people does one of the 2.
Yeah, you need to build out both tiles and roads to it,
Yeah.
while as for the scoring, you just need to do tiles. So it's a very big investment, but getting an extra card is
Really
pretty
good.
huge,
Yeah.
because it's basically an extra turn.
I've wanted to do it every time we play, but then I don't because the investment's so big and I get stuck into what I want to do other places.
And there's other spots on the map that when you cover it, you get bonuses, and some of them can be pretty big. Especially there's like one that gets you a green tile ability, which are very strong. So you're kind of incentivized to pick between going towards that or the port, or there's another spot with a castle that has a very strong ability on it too.
Yeah.
Which all is kind of in different directions, so it's difficult to do all of them.
The strong stuff seems to be spread pretty nicely on the board.
Yeah.
You're not just going to go this place because it's got multiple good things.
Yep. Yeah.
Have you ever built the special castle tile in any of the games?
I did
not.
I did once. The abilities are pretty strong. Usually it's a pretty big income or a boost to money. And if you build a building on it, you can get it again. But I don't think it's necessary. I think I skipped it in the last game that we played. But it's always felt strong. And I think we had one game where one of the guys had an ability that let him um, place tiles anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So he was able to quickly get to that spot, and it felt very strong.
That did feel really strong that game. I think that was a character ability.
Yes, I think that was a character ability.
Um,
But yeah, overall, I didn't feel like it was like a crazy thing. It was just kind of a cool extra thing if you wanted to have kind of a variable income tile that you could get. That was pretty strong.
yeah, I've never spent the time to get to that one. There's another one that I think I'm going to do every game and then
Yeah.
don't.
It's always tempting.
You sort of mentioned this earlier, but the tightness of the income. So
Yeah.
there's like 4 or 5 different resources, money, and then some building materials. I feel like you're kind of not gonna get great income on all of them ever. So to me, every time we've played, it has felt really tight, especially in wood, I think, which is one of the primary things for building buildings.
Yep.
But money, one of the games at least, I managed to get good money income, so that actually didn't feel as tight as the other ones. So that
Yeah.
was nice. So I assume you can do the same with the other resources, but I've not managed it with anything but money.
Yeah, I think it somewhat comes down to what cards you can get. Like, I think I had a really good metal income the last game that we played. But, yeah, it was like really bad on food. But yeah, there's like a lot of conversions that you can do at worse rates, but it kind of helps mitigate that.
The conversion rates are pretty bad.
They are bad, but in a pinch, you can get rid of a bunch of gold
Yeah.
to fill in that last metal that you need. And I think I did it a lot more than I thought I would.
Do you like that level of tightness? Do you think it was too much? Would you like it tighter even maybe?
No, I thought it was actually pretty good level. Like, I really had to plan out the best things to build, and like make sure that I was saving enough for the next round if I thought I was going to build something. And it's also kind of interesting because like your cards themselves are also kind of a resource, so you can also think about getting rid of those in order to get other resources or get more money. I would maybe say I think it'd be cool if there was maybe some spots on the board that just provided raw resources. I think the only actual spot on the board is a money spot,
Yeah.
which then you can convert into resources, or
I
you
think
can
there's
just
also a diamond spot, but that's not really the same,
diamond. Yeah, is kind of a separate resource
Yeah.
that is
used differently.
used differently. But sometimes it just felt like I really could not find a way to generate more wood. And I couldn't find income cards for wood. So it's like, man, if there was just a spot that was like, put a worker here and get to wood, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's like a huge hindrance. Like you said, you could just try and get money instead and do the conversion that way.
Yeah. I like the level of tightness on that because like you said, it really made you think about what you're spending each resource on because there's so many options of things to build and levels of those buildings and there's no way you're doing them all, and I think it would be a much worse game if you could just do all the things.
Yeah, the whole system feels very similar to like a Terraforming Mars where you have your income track and then you get your income at the beginning of a round. And it has even like the cubes that you put out into
Yeah.
your thing and spend them, but you're kind of trying to build up your wood and metal to do buildings and money to play cards and then doing conversions. So I think if you like that type of game, you'll definitely like this type of game.
Probably, yeah. The doesn't feel a lot like Terraforming Mars to me, but everything you said, those comparisons are definitely valid. But
Yeah, I more meant in the like how you spend resources and less of the building kind of a
Gotcha.
tableau. Because you do get to play cards in this game, and there is a system where you can play cards to activate later.
Mm-hmm.
Generally felt like, yeah, there wasn't really a huge tableau. It just kind of was like, all right, I have this income, and maybe I've slotted one or two cards that occasionally will get me a little bit of a boost. But I feel like I didn't slot a ton of cards, and it felt pretty restrictive.
One of the characters that we played incentivizes slotting the cards. But even then, I think the most you can possibly slot is like 9, like 3 in each thing.
Yeah.
So I think that can maybe feel good, but it's hard to activate that too. Like the way they're slotted.
There's not a ton of activations for it. Plus, in order to get more slots, you have to build buildings.
Right.
So in theory, you have to go up all 3 building tracks to get your maximum
Right.
slots. So it can feel tough, but it also is nice. Like if you are focusing on one,
Yeah.
you can get some decent rewards for it.
If you have 2 or 3 cards in it and then actually get to activate it, it's feels like a good boost.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to talk about before we get into scores?
No, I think that was mostly it.
Start us off.
All right. Well, I think overall, I would give Sweetlands, I would say about like an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think I had any huge problems. The only thing I would say is that, yeah, like if you play with AP prone people, you might be wary of those turns where if you end early, you might have some long turns where you're not doing anything, which could be a downside. But overall, I think it was a very crunchy, thinky game and a lot of choices, so a lot of fun.
For me, it's probably an 8.5. I think it would be higher if it wasn't, like you said, so AP prone. And with 4 people, it's so long. I think most of our games have been pushing 4 hours. So if it was shorter than that, I'd maybe be 9.5. But with the time, I think probably 8.5 for me. I don't think there's any other than the length. I don't really think I dislike anything about it, and it gives me a lot to think about the whole time. So even on those AP turns where it's maybe 5-10 minutes between me doing anything, I at least have something to think about and plan towards. It's not just waiting for nothing to happen, basically.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, that was Sweetlands, and we'll hope you check the game out, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.